And we're on again.
Okay, awesome. First of all, thanks guys for bearing with us here. We've been messing around with everything. Unfortunately, we've had to switch over which computer is going to be running the KSP version. So we're going to be lacking quality slightly for this launch, which is a bit of a pain, but we're going to push ahead anyway. So let's just go ahead. We've got this launch here, so let's go for it.
Anyone feel like doing a countdown?
Give yourself a countdown, because there's probably some delay, and it'll be really kind of anticlimactic if you go on like a second or two after I say one.
Oh, by the way, let's make sure that we have the KSP itself always up, and it's not flipping between people spaces and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So Sean, if you could go to the drop-down menu and make sure it's saying presented. There you go.
Yep. Itself always up, and it's not flipping between people spaces and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, Pete, give yourself your countdown.
Right. Here we go in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go in 10,
And we have liftoff of the MAV,
6, 5,
taking our brave Kerbals to Mars and back. I feel like I should add in like a Star Trek, opening scene quote there or something. Stardate.
Our brave Kerbals, Mars and back.
Hey, whoever has the stream open, can you please mute the volume on your YouTube so we're not hearing echoes?
Yeah, I think Sean, you should be able to mute people as well, just in case.
All right, looking good.
It is looking good.
Okay, so give us a rundown of what's actually happening here.
So we are in our initial vertical ascent. The booster is going to pitch over fairly quickly. Has a high thrust to weight ratio, so we don't really need to wait too long before pitch over. The 8 RD-171 engines are firing. There's just a slight graphical glitch because this computer really is not made to be doing this. So the 4 center engines are actually RS-25 main engines, also known as SSMEs from the space shuttle. They're essentially the sustainer engines. So this vehicle is going to put the payload into approximately a 400 kilometer by negative 120 kilometer orbit. The Nerva engines on the on the transfer stage will fire briefly and apply about 170 meters a second of delta V to circularize the orbit.
Okay.
So we are still looking good here.
And just to make sure it's clear, these external boosters are not an asparagus staging. That's not something that really works well
Nope.
In real life.
They are parallel staged.
Oh, and if you're wondering why they're not really firing, they are. It's just a graphical glitch. I don't know if Pete mentioned that before.
And I've also added in the description of this live stream, and it'll be in the description of the video as well. When we end the live stream, I'll turn it into a video, and you'll be able to rewatch it in its entirety. You'll be able to see in the description we've got a Telemachus link that's connected to our website. If you want to go and look at that, you'll be able to see live Telemachus data concerning the spacecraft. The data does not get saved in any way, so you'll only get live data. You won't get historic stuff, but it's quite fun to watch and keeping an eye on the stats. So if you want to take a look at that, feel free. Also, if you have any questions about the rocket or the mission, feel free to post that in the chat. I'll be keeping a close eye on the chat and presenting questions to the guys here.
We have passed max Q.
Awesome.
So a note about the asparagus staging and why it doesn't work as well in real life as it does in KSP. When you're flowing fuel around, right, from stage to stage to stage throughout to an engine, you're actually transferring a lot of momentum, and your vehicle will just start spinning as you transfer angular momentum around through your fuel, and it makes it real hard to control your launch vehicle that way. So there's even a lot of challenges with just flowing fuel into a center core with momentum and things like that as well. So KSP makes it real easy on us. They don't model that, but in real life it's much more.
There was an example of a Russian vehicle which did actually have asparagus staging in mind. It was called the UR700. They solved it by very carefully placing their. It was, first of all, it's hypergolic, so the mass of the fuel and oxidizer was kept relatively equal, and they were able to offset it by very cleverly offsetting fuel and oxidizer tanks around the vehicle. Of course, they never built it, but.
Interesting. All right.
Okay, couple of questions. This is a fully automatic launch. Yes?
It's a 90% automatic launch.
Okay, awesome. And a kind of a bigger question, something that's a lot more almost serious. What if something goes wrong? Have we practiced this before? What's the kind of, have we had any plans for if stuff goes wrong?
Well, this particular stack configuration is new as of very recently. So previous stack configurations have worked. This stack has been blown a couple of times, but assuming that there is a failure, the Bahamas will be only slightly irradiated from the Nerva engines that are carried on board this launch.
And on the question if something goes wrong, like in-game wrong, so let's assume that some engine fails or something, we've considered using a mod that's called Dang It, which simulates that minor damage to non-critical parts. In the end, we decided against it because we said to ourselves, we've included so many redundant systems on everything but the rockets that we can always simulate that, say, something goes wrong because we have double and triple redundant systems on everything. Oh, and the payload of this thing is 200 metric tons.
It's actually more around 240.
Right.
We get that extra boost from the small firing of the Nerva engines.
Oh yes.
So roughly how long can we expect the external boosters to be firing for?
Well, actual firing time is about 7 minutes and 30 seconds of the main boost of the main launch vehicle, and there'll be an approximately 6-minute firing of the Nerva engines after that.
Okay.
Of course, it'll take much.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to take a lot longer, just because of our wonderful, wonderful computer that's running it.
But at least it is running it, right?
Exactly. It's better than having no stream at all.
Yes, indeed.
And the payload is in metric tons, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
So it looks like we're about an altitude of 87 some odd kilometers at this point, so making our way out of the atmosphere.
Yes, staging should be coming up very, very soon.
And now is staging an automated event, or is that something you'll be doing?
Staging will be automated at this time.
Excellent.
We got a couple questions on what's inside the fairing.
Oh, we'll be seeing that soon enough.
To the person who's asking why we're running it on a computer that may not be adequate for doing so, we were running it on a computer that was going to work fine. I mean, as fine as you can with the part count that we're looking at and the mod count that we're looking at. But the problem is we made some very minor tweaks to the mod pack that we're using last minute. That's why we had to take the break there. And because of that, the machine couldn't load up KSP, so we've had to switch over to someone else's computer who the computer itself is probably not the best for running it, but it's better than having no stream, because otherwise we would have had to cancel the stream and wait till we got our mod pack sorted out. So I suppose, Sean, you might be good to answer this. How many people are involved in KSPtoMars, and kind of what nationalities are we looking at? Are they mostly American or European, or where's everyone from?
I mean, I would say that's kind of a hard question to ask. We've had lots of people participate in varying degrees. I mean, some people have worked with us for months longer than even me, and others just kind of come by to have dropped by and just fixed a few things to help us out. But I don't know. We have people from New Zealand. I mean, most of us are Americans, obviously, but I mean, you yourself are Scottish. Sven, where are you from?
I'm Danish, or I'm German, but I live in Denmark, so yes, European here.
So yeah, I'd say we're a pretty diverse bunch.
And how many have been involved in some sort? I think at least 100, 120 people.
Oh yes, at least. I remember.
If not even more.
Yeah, exactly. I was at the very beginning. I had come up with a few graphical kind of things, some images, some stuff to send out to the world and make everyone get hyped for the project. And there was, a good 100 or so people at that point. So even now, even at the end, when we've lost a few people and we've gained a few new people, we're still working with a bunch of people, and so many people have put in time into this who are no longer on the project. So if you were looking at the project as a whole, we've just had so many guys giving their time. I think it's pretty epic that we've managed to get so many people interested in a project like this.
So we got another question from someone. So the design looks pretty aerodynamic. Somebody had asked, why do we need a fairing on that?
That's primarily for the liquid hydrogen tank to maintain realism. The liquid hydrogen tank would not want to be exposed. Well, actually, when real heat is working properly, the heating of the atmosphere during ascent will boil off some liquid hydrogen. So we want to be able to protect that with the fairing. So it looks like all parameters are still nominal on the ascent.
And just to make sure everyone realizes, this is not a crewed launch. We have no crew in this launch. This is completely unmanned or unkerballed, however you want to put it. This is the MAV, and we'll be sending up a crew in another launch later on.
So it looks like atmospheric density just dropped to 0, so we're more or less out of the atmosphere at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And just past 160 kilometers in altitude.
Very nice.
Now this inclination does start moving up a little bit faster, right?
Let's do a slight adjustment to our ascent program.
Oh.
Remember, guys, you can keep an eye on all the kind of live data from this mission on the Telemachus stream. There's a link in the video description. Just make sure to keep saying that so people know it's there. It's a very cool layout, and you get some awesome data from it.
There was a question if we treat the Kerbals as if they were humans and did such a food and water requirements. Yes, we are actually, that's a part of our mission, is being hyper-realistic on life support requirements. We have managed to look at converters and all Sabia reactors and all kinds of fun stuff for making sure that our Kerbals actually are treated well. We even have a mod called Keep Fit installed, which requires our Kerbals to do fitness from time to time and to stay happy and actually willingly to work. And it's there are a lot of mods in this in our install to make sure that this is realistic in terms of life support and stuff like that.
And another question again, what kind of electric power source are we getting for this? Just solar panels?
Well, right now our power source is nuclear for this particular vehicle.
Okay. So could maybe someone explain a little bit more about the MAV, its design and function?
Anyone from Lander here?
No, I don't think we have anyone from Lander
yeah,
here.
I was on Lander team. Me.
Awesome.
Go
Well,
ahead.
Chase, if you could maybe just walk us through just generally the design of the MAV or MDV, however you want to look at it.
Okay, first of all, you can tell that it's actually kind of small compared to the rest of the craft, obviously, because it's payload. Secondly, you can't see it at the moment, but the fuel tanks on it are actually under that little, I don't think it's a fairing. It's like a cylinder under the entire, oh, wait, yeah, he's zooming in.
I think it means aeroshell.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, anyways, yeah, there's the fuel tanks under it, there's 4 of them, and the engines, I'd have to check exactly what engines they are.
They're RL-10s.
Interesting point about the RL-10. The RL-10 is actually the engine that will be used on SLS, the upper stage, or what's known as the EUS, the exploration upper stage. There'll be 4 of them in theory, and so there's real life symmetry, if you want to call it that, going on between what we're doing here and what will actually be used in real life.
Getting all fancy with the camera there.
Actually, not sure what's causing that.
It looks kind of neat.
Do you have activated free camera, or are you still on Orbital? Well, that's some really crazy camera stuff going on there.
Just say it's intentional and call it artistic.
Yeah.
Alright, well now we're getting to the most critical part of the launch.
Yeah, eccentricity is dropping quite nicely. I like that. SMA is coming up. I like that. From an astro perspective, we look real good.
We're coming up to main engine cutoff.
Yeah.
So once our main engine cuts off, what's going to be happening?
The transfer stage and Mars ascent vehicle is going to separate from the booster, and it's going to coast to apoapse where it will circularize.
Okay.
Our apoapse is going to start rising. Alright, and we should have Miko any second now. Alright.
Glorious. Eccentricity at cutoff 0.011. Quite nice. Very good.
Look at that.
Okay.
Now, it looks like not everything is absolutely perfect here.
That's fine.
So we might be having some slight issues. with our rocket motors. Is that correct?
It looks like periaps altitude is about 200 kilometers right now, so it should be okay if we have to coast
Yep.
for it.
We're going to continue to gain altitude, approximately 47 minutes to apoapse, and at that time the vehicle should be able to finish the circularization burn.
Except there was a bit of a deviation right before Miko, so we're doing with a bit of a spin.
Yep. Well, it seems like the vehicle is recovering.
And of course, in with the mod pack that we've got installed, things like you can't just turn the craft without any RCS controls. You do need that kind of thing to be able to maintain control of the vessel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
If anyone of the viewers actually wants to see what mods we're using, we'll post a link to our GitHub where you can see our list of mods, which is a combination of a lot of mods. As part of the source code of the let me just rephrase that. We've written a little piece of software that does all installation of mods and custom config files and removal of unneeded parts for us. And part of that source code is a list of all the mods we're using. We are going to post a link to that as well in the description after the stream. You can always take a look at KSPtoMars.org, where there's a link to our GitHub as well. So yeah. There are a lot of mods.
Looks like our college maneuver is performing.
Hey, just a note, I'm looking at the angular velocity data right now, and that number is increasing. Is that what I want to be
That's
seeing?
because it's applying thrust.
Angular velocity? Okay. Oh yeah, there it goes back down again. All right.
We're going to do a manual correction here. Sending a command to the vehicle for an additional burn.
And why are we executing this burn then?
We're coming up to the actual. It appears there was a problem post separation. It didn't get to its program altitude.
Okay, so we're just manually taking control and
Just sending a command, just sending a reignition command. It's doing all the pointing and continuing to fly itself.
Awesome.
There's been a question about where we are launching from. If we'll.
Did we just lose the stream?
Okay, first of all, who all is here?
Adam.
Yep. Wait, is Pete still here? Because it says he is, but thing went down. And left. Oh,
P, you still here?
Stand by. Hello?
hold on. The telemetry data looks normal, except true anomaly that just went all the way down to 0, but everything else is still there, so I think it's still running.
Oh yeah, everything's. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's still running.
What happened?
Oh, looks like our video feed cut.
Oh, okay.
Let me restart it.
Well,
There we go.
And we're back.
Hey. Very good.
So, the vehicle will be reorienting itself to do its raise apoapse burn, or sorry, raise perigee burn.
So there was a note about angular velocity increasing again. So we are actually reorienting the vehicle right now for a maneuver, so we expect the angular velocity to jump up again while we're doing that.
At this point, we are in a stable orbit. We're just tuning the final parameters. So essentially, the launch has, to a certain extent, succeeded. And at this point, the craft is maneuvering itself to the final parameters.
what are the final parameters?
The final target parameter is not what we see in Telemachus right now because of switching computers. Nominally, this launch is supposed to be a 67-degree inclination with a circular altitude of 207 kilometers.
Okay, I must have dropped for a second there. Apologies. This does not look good.
Hmm?
It does. It does. It does.
Does it? Is this what's supposed to be happening then? Am I just...
Yeah, it was explained while you were out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, the vehicle is in orbit is simply reorienting itself.
Right.
Okay.
Perhaps just not in the most efficient manner.
So how long do we have until the next maneuver?
Next maneuver in 43 minutes.
All right, plenty of time to get pointing correctly then. So just a note about how something like this would work in real life. When you're reorienting a spacecraft that actually exists, those maneuvers can take upwards of 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and we typically do them very slowly. What you guys are seeing here is actually quite quick compared to what you would do in real life. So just this might look slow, but it's actually quite fast.
So how are we looking when it comes to what we were hoping to achieve versus what we have got at the moment?
Well, what we've got at the moment is, unfortunately, because of some differences in the Copernicus settings as far as the initial epoch, this is not going to be necessarily the entirely accurate launch because, well, we wanted to give you a launch. In real terms, it's supposed to take place about a year before the transfer window. And it looks like, as far as following the orbit that is intended to, the vehicle has injected the payload, even though it's over the original design spec capacity of the vehicle. So, in that sense, we're doing very well.
Someone in the chat just asked what all the red dots are. When you're playing with Realism Overhaul, all the red dots are antennas that you can use to communicate with was a remote-controlled craft. So it's like the case having communication from the KSC. So it's a deep space network.
Okay, so am I right in saying we have one more maneuver to make then before we?
That is correct.
Okay. And could you explain what the maneuver is going to be doing?
The next maneuver is going to be a small amount of delta V to simply raise the perigee of the orbit from 200 to 400 kilometers. So that will happen at apoapse, or apogee, because we don't. This is not vague. We are talking about Earth.
And how far away is that maneuver then?
Well, if we look at our time to apoapse, it's approximately 42 minutes away.
Okay. Once we achieve orientation, I think what would be best to do is maybe time accelerate to that point.
That should happen automatically.
Oh, brilliant.
Persistent rotation can occasionally throw off guidance systems, as far as from what I've been able to look up.
We have a question from the chat. Are comms remote taken into consideration? And I can answer that immediately. Yes, we've done a lot of thought, and right now we are assuming that there is an existing network of communication satellites in Earth orbit, which there is in real life, and which we expect it to be in 2030 as well. And so we haven't set up our own satellites in Earth's orbit, but we are going to send satellites to Mars, our own communication satellites, so that we have a constant communication network between Mars and Earth.
One thing to note, launching those satellites won't actually be part of this mission. We're kind of assuming that they're already existing. It's one thing to consider is the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter is used as a relay already for rovers such as Curiosity. So it stands to reason that 20 years from now that we're still going to have satellites over there that can be used as comm relays.
So what we are doing in Essential is we're going to hyper-edit them over there.
Yeah.
The orientation program is taking a while to seek in on the node.
So how much monopropellant would you say a craft like this carries?
This craft's carrying, I believe, approximately 13 tons.
That's a lot.
And the residuals after the final maneuver should be also about 137 tons of liquid hydrogen as the primary propellant.
Nikolai and Skylar, who have asked why the ship has made so many rotations already. Pete, or are you willing to explain that?
Essentially, it's just problem with the seeking program not having a lot of this stuff isn't really built for things without a large amount of control authority that normal KSP thrusters and reaction wheels put in place.
It does look like we're getting pretty close to what we want, though. I see the angular velocity is definitely dropping, and the slope of that plot has actually come down quite a bit as well. So from that perspective, things are definitely starting to settle out. I also assume our heading should be somewhere in the vicinity of 180 or so. If we're pointing, maybe.
So Zero Cool has asked why we're not doing a direct launch to Juna.
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
First of all, we're not launching to Juna. We are launching to Mars.
It's in the name.
Right. Yes, because Duna doesn't exist in this universe. No, the reason we're not doing a direct launch, as opposed to what we're doing here, which is putting ourselves into a parking orbit, is because it's real hard to time those direct launches, and then automate that is the problem, right? So from a risk mitigation perspective, and from the perspective of being able to do the analysis to understand what we need to do as far as maneuvers are concerned, the decision was made pretty early on to go to a parking orbit, and then we can give ourselves some breathing room, adjust our mission plan based on launch vehicle performance, and then go. And this is not without historical precedent. When NASA goes to fly Exploration Mission 1 and Exploration Mission 2 on SLS, they will put the Orion spacecraft into a LEO parking orbit as well, and do 1 or 2 revs, and then do the TLI burn, the translunar injection burn. So we're kind of following that architecture a little bit.
And do we know what the finished cost is for the mission, if we were to put a price on it? In-game, of course.
I don't think we ever considered like real-life cost. It's very expensive, that's for sure. But I don't know if anyone... The cost was not one of our criteria, just because the technical side is already as challenging as it is, so we never really
exactly.
Now, someone did ask if we're going to use a moon gravity assist or we're just going, and the answer is we're just going. You don't really get that much from the moon, and it's a lot harder to plan for a lunar gravity assist. You can do it, but it's hard to plan for. So instead of dealing with all that, we're just going. It's easier.
Just tuning the corrections, and we should be ready for final orbital insertion fairly soon.
Yeah, it looks like the attitude has stabilized, and we're no longer spinning like crazy, so that makes the astrodynamic system me very happy.
Okay, just to answer why there is a Kerbal in there, he's just enjoying himself. He's just relaxing, you know. I bet he's got like a martini. But on a more serious note, we may have accidentally sent him up a little early. I'm sure, because of the time frame of the mission, it's entirely possible to send up another mission to retrieve and bring him back. If you wanted to add some narrative to it, perhaps you could say that he's one of our adventurous people. He climbed in when we weren't looking. And,
he's a stowaway.
Exactly. So he's going to get a stern talking to when we bring him back down to Earth. But we will be bringing him back and setting up the proper crew, who we do actually have selected. I may have forgotten the names at the moment. I know we've got Scott Kerbal, or Kerbal, yeah.
We have Maxime.
That's right.
Yep.
I'll just go searching for the names. I think it's in the sidebar, I believe.
I think a lot. Wait, yeah.
There is a question on what implications the stowaway has for life support. Not much, as there isn't a lot of life support in the Mars Ascent vehicle. And yes, bring him back indeed.
Don't worry, he has quite a few potatoes and quite a lot of room, so I'm sure he can figure something out there.
We'll bring him back. It might just involve shoving him out the airlock first.
Exactly. Just make sure he has his IVA suit on, shove him out. Nice little toasty re-entry. I'm sure he'll be fine.
And of course it is Jebediah. Who else would be crazy and brave enough to be a stowaway on a rocket without much of in the way of life support? Only Jebediah. Oh, maybe Valentina, but
what I find interesting is that he sat himself right down in front of the IVA camera to make sure that he's noticed. I think he knows his situation, and that he knows he needs a wee bit of a hand to get back.
There's the question on how long the entire mission will be. In terms of real days, we are going to launch during today and the next 9 days. In-game, approximately 6 years in total, if I remember correctly, including 6 to 7 years. The actual crew will stay around 500 days on Mars, and then they will return. And no, we did not pack extra underwear for the stowaway. And I think all of us are going to watch The Martian in cinemas, as we are all avid fans of the book, as it has been obligatory reading for all of us.
Already got my tickets.
Exactly. And
So do I.
if you haven't seen it already, we did do an interview with Andy Weir. Just plugging that right now. It's on our YouTube channel, which you are watching this on. So if you click on our little icon, you can search through that, find the thing, and I will also go in and find the link, and I'll post it in the chat for you guys as well if you want to have a listen to our interview with Andy Weir, who is the author of The Martian.
Peter, Squad is not planning on implementing n-body physics at any time. They've very explicitly stated that. But there's this awesome project called Principia, which is a mod developed by a really cool guy named Egg, who's a good friend of mine by now because we've talked so much on IRC. He is actually implementing n-body physics for KSP. Whoever has the KSPtoMars account, could you post a link to his to the forum post for Principia?
I'll post that up.
Do you know what scale that's going to be to? Like, is it just going to be the planets, or like the actual parts? Would that affect things?
The Principia is actually taking off rails. It's completely disabling the rail. It's completely it's compatible with both stock, with the 6.4 mod, and with RSS. So it's completely independent of of what planets you have. It's a complete replacement of the physics model.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering if like it was only the planets and only celestial bodies, because I mean this is KSP. You could build some pretty big things. Obviously not the size of a planet, but I would just find it funny.
The thing is though, if you imagine the size of Gilly, right?
Yes.
Gilly is compared to a lot of the rockets you can build. Even if you build the largest thing out there, Gilly is really big in comparison with that. And you look at its gravity, and it has a very, very tiny surface gravity.
Yeah.
So
I
you
think
have to
the
try
point.
really, really hard to get a non-negligible mass.
I can on that topic I can recommend Scott Manley's video where he talks about how much it would take to deorbit Gilly.
Yeah.
And it's a really fun video, and you will when you've watched that video you will realize deorbiting a moon is a really bad and really stupid idea. Because it's pretty much impossible. So implementing n-body physics for anything else but celestial bodies is really not necessary.
Okay.
Well, if anybody's ever read the Mars trilogy, they have a nice section on deorbiting Phobos.
Okay.
That is true. Whatever happened to Deimos? I don't quite remember.
I think that was kicked out of the system.
That's right. That's right. Along with Clark.
Well, no one tell Elon, because that guy seems to want to drop nuclear bombs on Mars, so Phobos would probably be his next target, I imagine.
That's a lot of energy up there. Would add a lot of heat to Mars.
Oh yeah.
But mostly first of all, he only suggested it as the quickest way to getting temperature up. But in all, you don't even need. He doesn't even want to use the heat from the nukes. What he wants to do is sublimate. I can't talk today. The CO2 gas, ice from the poles and thus change the albedo of the Mars a lot, which will create a runaway greenhouse effect. So, and Skylar, no, we're not using KSP celestial bodies. So no, they're not about 10 times as dense because we're actually using RSS or realism overhaul to be precisely. So their density is pretty much the same as in real life.
So it looks like we're burning now. Maybe we can comment on that a little bit.
Yep.
So how are we looking with this burn? Have we started it?
Yes, Skylar, I know you were talking about the deorbiting a moon. It would still be unreasonable with a moon the size of Gilly in real world, even if it had a proper density. It would still be completely unreasonable to deorbit it. The amount of fuel or the amount of it would still be completely mental.
So how is the burn coming along then?
Looks like we're having a slight problem and with a slight ullage issue.
And to answer the question why the altitude stage indicators are hidden, they're not. It's a graphic glitch.
Linux.
It's not intentional. It's a combination of all the mods we're using and using Linux. And yes, we have to use Linux. This mod pack doesn't run on Windows at all.
Now it looks like we've actually had a thruster failure here.
Is this the RCS thrusters then?
Stand by. There we go. All right.
Can we still get that burn off?
Well, looks like we're actually going to be able to do it.
Are we doing ullage with RCS?
Mm-hmm.
Oh god.
Pressure coming up in the engines.
So, could you maybe explain what the deal is with the RCS, what this ullage burn is?
The fuel has to be settled in the back of the tank so that it's able to be uptaked by the engine turbo pumps. So essentially, we have to do a maneuver to push the gases towards the back of the tank.
Exactly, because on Earth, gravity, or there's a force pulling all the stuff inside down, whereas when you're effectively falling through space, there's not really much of a force to pull it to the back.
All right, and we have burn execution.
Hallelujah.
Okay, good.
So just as an interesting comparison, these engines here, I believe, are pump fed. Is that correct?
These engines are actually not. These are not. Oh, sorry. These are pump fed. These are turbo pump fed, which is unusual for this kind of engine. This engine's development of this is a spin-off of an engine that was originally pressure fed.
Okay.
Pressure fed is more common for this sort of engine. A pump just allows higher chamber pressures.
Right. So most, well, I can only comment on geostationary communication spacecraft, but those engines on those vehicles are typically all pressure fed, and so we don't have to do these kind of ullage maneuvers like you're doing here. We simply pressurize our tanks with helium, and then we open valves and stuff flows and combustion happens, and so it's a lot less complicated. But you also don't get the same specific impulse, and you definitely don't get the thrust. So there are advantages.
So there was a question from the chat about your thrust-to-weight ratio with the RCS. Anybody care to answer that?
It's real tiny on the RCS. It's real small. Remember,
so there's your answer. Negligible small, but enough to have ullage.
All right, and we are in an acceptable orbit.
yeah, that looks okay to me. Eccentricity of 0.0033. It's close enough.
So it's a 443 by 398 kilometers. That's pretty nice, yes?
Yeah, I mean, if I was really going to be a perfectionist about it, we'd get that lower. But for what it is, I think it's just fine for what we're trying to do here. So, as they say, good enough for government work. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think that's all we really have time for today. But that's our rocket launch. Apologies again for the poorer quality that we were hoping to get a slightly higher quality stream too, guys. So hopefully we can get that fixed by the next stream. Our next stream is tomorrow. When is it? I think it's the same time tomorrow, is it?
I'm fairly sure, yes.
It should be.
Yeah, same time tomorrow. I'll be posting up links for that on the KSP subreddit and on the KSPtoMars subreddit. You can check us out on Twitter, which is @KSPtoMars. You can check us out on our subreddit, which is just /r/KSPtoMars. And yeah, I believe that's everything we have to do today. We will see you guys tomorrow. I think that's pretty much it. So
Thanks for joining.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Thanks
to
for
all
watching.
the 100 of you. This is totally
Awesome.
amazing.
And there will be a copy of this stream going up on our YouTube channel, so you can subscribe to us here and watch all our stuff and be alerted to when we start streaming and all that good stuff. So yes, that's us. So from all of us here at KSPtoMars, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.